If they, upon their vein assessment or a review of the inmate's medical records or those kind of things, that they felt it was not going to be possible to establish an IV site, then they could make that determination and use the intramuscular injection immediately. But there would have to be a reason, there would be some reason that IV access would be determined not to be likely or possible.
Is there a reason why that's the second option? I guess the option B, why not just do that in the first?
Why not just do that? Generally, the intravenous access is quicker. It takes less time. And that's really the main reason. It's something that we're experienced with. It's been our protocol, so that's the real reason.
The change in protocols, does that really require any change in the timetable? You spoke earlier about the timetable, getting ready for the actual execution. Does this really change?
I don't think that we'll see a demonstrative change in the timelines of preparing for the execution. We didn't change it in policy, so we don't expect it to be a real demonstrative. Again, our policy has always permitted the execution team as much time as they needed to establish the IV site. So when we say the execution is scheduled for 10 a.m., we've always known that the execution team has as much time as they need to prepare the inmate for execution and establish those IV sites.
What would be a reason you could not get an IV site?
Well, I'm not a medical professional, but there's a number of reasons that you would have. I mean, there's everything from past IV drug use to how much fluid intake the inmate has had, to any appropriate medications that the inmate's on, and even just his vascular system as a whole could make IV access difficult. I mean, I think we probably all know people who have a hard time getting a needle stick when they're donating blood or undergoing surgery. And so there's some people who, just because of their vascular system, it's difficult to establish an IV site.
You said out in the death house that you have the mental health professional going in and out checking on the inmate. What are they looking for particularly, and could they stop, if they saw a change in the mental health of the inmate, could that stop the execution from going forward?
No, that would not stop the execution from going forward. The only thing that stops the execution from going forward is a court action or a reprieve. But it does give our staff information to prepare the inmate for execution and to address his issues. Our team is a very professional team. They take a lot of care in helping that inmate become prepared for execution and for that walk into the death chamber. It gives our team information that they can use as they address the inmate and his issues. So those are all things that the staff need to be aware of in working with that inmate.
Is there, I don't know if you would have what type of fluid intake Rommel Broom had, but I was told that some death row inmates are intentionally dehydrating themselves before the scheduled time. Was there any evidence of that?
We don't have any record of that with Rommel Broom. We've watched their fluid intake. We certainly, they have fluid available to them. We certainly can't force them to hydrate themselves, but we do watch that. And again, with the new protocol, if we believe that were to be an issue, or if we had problems establishing an IV site, then we have a backup system that we could go to. We don't have any definitive answer on Rommel Broom. We know that our team did their job in establishing an IV site, and that site became unusable when they ran a saline flush to it. That could be caused by a number of factors. This, under the new protocol, will be able to address that issue. To do this, we're the first state in the country, and as far as I know, in the world, to adopt a one-drug protocol and to use an intramuscular injection as a backup means for lethal injection. So this will be the first time that this process is used for executions. However, I will say that these drugs are not new. This is not the first time that these drugs are used, or the methods to administer the drugs. It is not the first time that they will be used. So it's new for executions, but they're not new drugs. These are well-established drugs. Their effects are well known, and And our litigation expert that we have worked with has spoken with us, and we are confident that these drugs will be effective in the lethal injection process here in Ohio. We attempt to identify any foreseeable vein issues when the inmate gets here. Later that evening and the next morning, we conduct vein assessments. Medical staff conduct vein assessments. But again, visually observing and doing a medical record review of the inmate is a different thing from then actually establishing the IV access. So if it's foreseeable, we attempt to identify any problem with IV access. But certainly once the team starts to establish the IV sites, they can learn information that they didn't know just from a hands-on review and a file review.
One more time, where does the backup go? You got the veins fail. Where's the backup?
The intramuscular is in a large muscle. Generally, it would be the thigh, the deltoid muscle, it could be the hip. It would be in one of those large muscles similar to how your flu shot is administered.
You said that these drugs have been tested before. Can you give some examples?
Well, I said they're well used. They're well used drugs. They're used in hospitals across the country. Thiopental sodium is used for surgery procedures. Its effects are well known. We're using it in a much larger quantity than is used for surgical procedures. Midazolam and hydromorphone are very well established drugs. They're used again in medical procedures in hospitals across the country. These are not experimental drugs. This is just the first time we will be using these drugs in an execution protocol.
What's the estimated time if you use it intermuscularly?
Well, there's a lot of factors that can go into that. The size of the inmate, how long it takes his body to process that drug. There's a lot of things that go into that. We've been told it could be anywhere from 15 minutes to a half an hour. It very much is depending on the individual person that you're injecting the intramuscular drug into.